Have fun.
All right, welcome. Thank you all for attending my TED Talk, not TED, my track talk. There we go. So as mentioned by Johnny, I am Natalie Wood. I coach for Eden Prairie High School. I did go to Eden Prairie High School myself. I'm not from Eden Prairie. I've moved all over the country. My dad's a football coach, but I intentionally brought myself back to Minnesota, and I had the opportunity to coach for my former high school, so I jumped on that. Quick background, if you didn't get a chance to read my bio, which is fine. Again, I competed in track starting in 7th grade. Again, I moved around a lot. Ended up at Eden Prairie, was on the varsity team there. Then moved to Ohio. My dad got a job in Ohio, so there I ran for that team. I was able to set a couple individual records there and go to state. State team won. So just a little bit of my background. And so I will go ahead and get into my presentation. And then if you guys have any questions, I'll ask that we hold them to the end, and then we'll go over them then. Cool. Alright, so today I'm here to talk about co-coaching strategies for long and triple jump, and then a few other caveats of coaching strategies as far as like meets and things like that. So I'll preface this. So I co-coach with Stephen Banks, who was supposed to be here today. Unfortunately, he had a conflict, so I'm taking over for him here. So we co-coach. This is something that's not very common, I think, at high schools. Generally, you have one jumps coach, which is where I was until Coach Banks got on, and I'll kind of explain why we brought him on. I think we got really lucky. We get along very, very well. We mesh very well. We work together very well. So we got really lucky. I'm sure that may not be the case for all, co-coaches. But I'm just here to talk about a little bit how we work together, how we serve our athletes that way, and how we kind of complement each other. Alright, so I'm just going to talk quickly about why I became a coach. So this statement here is actually from my coach's dashboard on the state league site. So my goal is to provide guidance and support to student athletes, to teach them skills that will help them become better athletes and better people, to encourage them to follow their passion and to remain true to their authentic selves. I became a coach not because I didn't have coaches that supported me, because I wanted to be that one, to be there for them, because I know that every athlete doesn't have that. So over here on the right, why I became a coach, passion for the sport. That's why all of us are sitting in this room right now. We're very passionate about the sport. We like helping kids learn it. Most of us, if not all of us, competed ourselves. Again, I mentioned coaching for Eden Prairie is awesome. It's kind of a full circle moment because I now coach with my former coaches. So it's kind of cool. It was really weird at first because some of them are my former teachers too. So I'm like, hello, Mr. So-and-so, and now I call them by their first name. So that was interesting, but again, it's really fun, and I think it means even more to me because that was my team. You know what I mean? So coaching is the family business. My dad's a retired professional football coach, so it's been my blood. That's why I move so much. That's just how it is. I never planned on coaching track. I just one day was like, hey, I wonder if I can go coach at Eden Prairie, and there was an opening. So he's a retired professional football coach. I mean, obviously I've had him as mentor guide, and he's instilled my work ethic, which I'm very thankful for. My brother, who also coached college track for a while, he was at Minnesota Mankato for a while too, so he coached football, sorry. And then his wife right now is actually the head girls softball coach at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, so it's in our blood. So another reason too, as I just mentioned, I wanted to be there. So my dad worked a lot. He didn't come to my track meets, obviously. My mom showed up to every meet, which I greatly appreciate, but my mom is a boomer. And so back then she wanted to compete track. It wasn't available. So my mom doesn't fully understand sport. So I'd go up to her and be like, hey, I did this. And she'd be like, is that good? And so you know what I mean? I want to be the one that's there to support you, but also be like, oh my God, that was a great performance. You know what I mean? And to know, how things are going and to be able to support in that way. I'm passionate about children. I don't have children of my own, and I don't want them, which I think kind of lends to this. I don't have my own kids, but I kind of treat my track kids as my own kids in the aspect that I care for them. I want the best for them. I'm considerate of them, respectful of them, all that fun stuff. And then as a couple of things that Esther mentioned in her presentation, I'm going to mention too, which I think just speaks to the fact that it's valid and is important to us. Being a teenager is hard. We've all been there. It's not easy. It can be mean. There's different aspects of life that it's hard to be a teenager. You're growing up, you're figuring out who you are. You've got influences all over coming at you. So I just want to make sure kids, I've been learning over the years that, kids have different situations, home, away, everything. So some kids don't have a support system at home. I want to be there for them if they have it, so that they do have it. I want them to know that they have a support system on our team. They have a family. They have a community that they belong to. I also like to make myself a safe space, if you will. I'm a very open-minded individual. I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. I've got a lot of advice to give. And so I want them to be able to come to me. Like, I'm not a teacher. I've mentioned that to you guys. I'm not a teacher. I don't see them at school every day. I only see them during track season. So I feel like I'm kind of an outlet for them, if you will. If they want to talk to me about stuff, track or unrelated, I'm not their teacher that's going to see them every day. I'm not their parent, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like I'm like a third party that they can trust. And then, yeah, like I said, I don't judge them. I give them advice. I just want the best for them. I talk to them about track. I talk to them about real life stuff because I'd rather them hear it from somebody with experience than, you know, maybe talking to their friends about a certain situation. Their friends giving them guidance that may not be accurate, if you will. Okay. So here are the topics I'm going to go over. Quick summary. So obviously effective co-coaching, managing a high athlete-to-coach ratio. As one of the coaches that was here in one of our prior sessions, some of us deal with a lot of kids for individual events, so that's something that I've been learning, and I'm still learning how to manage. Pre-meet prep. I've got athletes that compete in multiple events and a lot of, you know, jumpers. Like, I have dozens of jumpers, so, you know, making sure that they're there and they're prepared and they know what to do. As I just mentioned, managing multi-event athletes, recruiting and retention, because that's very important. And then just establishing and maintaining relationships with your athletes. The fact that Jackie's here with me right now, I think, is a testament. I've known her since she was a freshman in high school, 2016. All right, so the first thing, I'm just gonna super high level, co-coaching best practices and considerations. I think most of us probably practice this. So the first one goes without saying, treat each other with respect. Obviously, we're all adults. If you don't get along with someone, we all know how to be cordial and respectful. So you may not get along with someone, but you should be respectful of them, and likewise. So just be respectful. We know that everyone deserves basic human courtesy. The second was, if another coach is providing guidance to an athlete, remember to ask for permission before adding your input or perspective. So in this situation, I like to say avoid what I call over-coaching. Essentially, I feel when somebody does that and interrupts when a coach is giving guidance, it kind of diminishes their credibility. It could diminish their credibility in the eyes of their athletes. And so I like to avoid doing that. And so that's something that I have ADHD, so I get excited and I interject a lot. And so that's something that I realized to kind of reel back. So now if Coach Banks is instructing an athlete and he tells him something, but I have something that I want to add that I think might help, I'll be like, hey, Coach Banks, I have, you know, some input, do you mind? And he's never told me no. But that way I, you know, recognize I'm respecting him. I have had coaches, not Coach Banks, that have come up and literally taken over my practice. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're doing that now. So that's something that, just be respectful of each other. We're all learning. Some people are more experienced than others, but we need to help each other and maintain that credibility so that those athletes know that their coaches are doing what they're doing, and then they know that they can go to them, you know, for advice and guidance with their events. Communicate often. Keep each other updated on athletes. As I mentioned, I'm not a teacher. I'm not at the school every day. However, I am blessed enough to work remotely, and I work from home. So I am able to be at the school as needed. So I'm able to get there early before practice. I do see Coach Banks when they're doing kind of their warm-ups, and we will sit there and talk, hey, what's our workout? Well, like, he'll ask me, what's your plan for workout today? If he has a plan, we'll kind of confer and then decide what we want to do. And then parlaying into this next point, workouts are not set in stone. Plan ahead, but be flexible. Always have a backup workout or two. I've learned that over the years. Always, you have a plan, you want to execute it, stuff doesn't always go the way we want. So always have a couple backup. I'd like to have like a workout bank, if you will. And so just, you know, there's multiple workouts that work the same thing, so just give yourself those options. Be prepared. And again, part of that is because workouts do need to be modified to match skill level. So if, you know, an athlete hasn't matched or mastered a particular skill, I don't really want to have them progress into another drill that's relating to a later part of the jump because they're not there yet. Let's see. Touch base before practice, I just mentioned that. Just talk about the planned workout, make sure we're executing. Part of us having a large group is that we do, but out of necessity, have to split off into other groups. And so for that, Coach Banks will generally take the returning varsity athletes into a smaller group, and I'll generally handle the newer jumpers who are a larger group. simply because I'm just really outgoing and I can command attention. And so that's kind of how we split that up, and I'll go more into that later as well. Alrighty. So just kind of a breakdown of our program and what we've established. So Coach Banks and I do not limit ourselves to coaching one gender or one jump. I coach boys and girls long and triple jump. Coach Banks coach boys and girls long and triple jump. We go wherever we're needed. We go to both meets, we're always there. As I mentioned, we practice with both boys and girls because we kind of don't have a choice. Our season's really short. And generally we try to work as a large group. I'm going to get on this later. That's challenging because not all athletes are at the same skill level. And that's where we split into smaller groups. So I mentioned we pivot and adjust to supplement and support each other. So I kind of wanted to give details on that. So let's say I'm busy, I've got my group there already, I'm giving them instructions, I'm setting them up for the workout, and then we've got kids that are either doing other events or kids that didn't realize that we've started jumps practice, and they'll, meander up and kind of just sit there. And I'm instructing, I'm not gonna stop instructing my kids right now, that's not fair to them. And so a lot of times they'll just sit and observe, sometimes they'll walk away. But if Banks is there, he's really good at kind of getting them in, catching them up to speed, and then letting them join the workout. So that's very, very helpful that he does that, because prior to him, I was managing it by myself, and it's quite chaotic as it is. And then with my ADHD, it was a struggle. Let's see here. Oh yeah, same with multiple event athletes. Devin Jordan was one of our athletes this past year, and with somebody at his level, he essentially got like kind of private coached by Banks because we were able to give him that much attention, which I think was really instrumental to his success. But again, we do try to coach all of our athletes at the same time and keep them as one cohesive group. Also works if one of us is going to be late or absent. Sometimes I have work meetings. I work in corporate America, so sometimes I have to take meetings. And I can't miss those. I mean, my full-time job pays my salary, coaching is part-time. And my co-coaches understand that, and they know, hey, when she's able to come to practice and do it, so I'll let them know, hey, this is what I plan to do, can you get them started for me? We utilize each other's strengths. So Steve works in the school, he's a social worker. So he knows way more about the kids from a personal level. He knows their home life, he knows, not necessarily their personality, but he knows their overall life situation better, I would say, than I would, as somebody who just comes in a couple times a month. So he's like more laid back and chill. I'm laid back as well, but I'm a little bit more high energy. So he knows that part of them, and I kind of evaded to this earlier where I'm not a teacher, so it's kind of like, okay, we can talk to Banks about school stuff and things like that if needed, but then, Natalie's also here to support us as well. And that's actually helpful that he's a social worker because he can fill me in. Sometimes kids go through stuff and I'm not aware of it until he tells me. Same with academic stuff. Some kids are failing and I'm like, oh, I had no idea. If I would have known, I definitely would have, addressed that with them. So it's very helpful to have that as somebody who's not a teacher. I did mention this earlier, I'm gonna quickly reiterate about mastering a skill. So I've learned over the years as a coach, when I first started coaching, our season's so short, I was like, okay, I have to teach these kids a whole jump sequence before the end of the season. Well, they were performing, but I didn't have, exceptional performance, and I wasn't seeing as much improvement as I'd like. So then these past couple years, I've really been breaking it down. We're gonna learn this skill. We're gonna master it before we move on. And so that also has created a little bit of a challenge because we've got varying skill levels that we're still trying to keep in their skill level and not, overwork them or have stuff that's not challenging enough for them. So again, we do try to master before we move on, but as I mentioned, workouts on set in stone, expect to pivot. Also, again, the season's so short, if it snows, if the weather's too bad, we're not actually in a pit until May, so we're limited to what we can do those first couple months. We're blessed to have an indoor track facility. We have a track inside, we don't have a pit, but we are able to use that, and we try to be as creative as we can until we actually get to a pit outside. All right. So something I mentioned is a high athlete to coach ratio. So I'm just gonna quickly do a little background and then I'll hop into these notes, reading them verbatim. So, when I first started coaching in 2016, I had maybe just enough jumpers to actually make a full varsity team, so like 3 to 4 of each jump. I got lucky and inherited some pretty good athletes there, but so I had like less than 10 jumpers when I started. I now have over 30 girls, just girl jumpers, who return season after season now that I'm managing. Most of them are JV. Most of them are not varsity level competitors, but they continue to come back, which is great. Our boys team is growing as well. Our boys team now is kind of reflective of when I first started. So it's a little bit harder to reel them in and get them dedicated to jumps, but I mean, it's difficult to challenge, but I'm glad that we have that level of turnout because again, I don't think that's very common, also depending on the size of your school. But that's something that I'm thankful for, but it's also a challenge. So one thing that I like to do is I like to set expectations right away at the beginning of the season. That sets that precedent. Kids, everybody, humans, we try to push boundaries. We try to see how much we can get away with, right? So we just want to make sure we set those expectations. They're set forward. They know what I expect from them. I ask them what they expect from me. Like, I treat it like customer service. Like, I'm your coach. I want to make sure you're getting value out of what I'm teaching you. I want to make sure that, you know, you're enjoying track. Let's see here. For schools and teams that don't have, you know, you may not even have 30 kids to come out for jumps. I want to stress for those, because recruitment and retention is important. Horizontal jumps are not necessarily very popular. It's technical. You know, kids come and do it. They don't do good. They leave. So I recommend at least, because obviously, you know, with varsity meets, you need to have at least 3 competitors. I like to have 4 or more, and I execute this by doing what I call a swing athlete. So these are my jumpers who are JV jumpers, but they have potential and or the current talent to participate in a varsity meet. This helps out if somebody gets injured last minute. I also use this opportunity to like kind of give them a boost to their morale to see if, you know, letting them compete in a varsity meet does push them to that varsity level. And then again, it's kind of like, you gotta pick and choose, and you wanna give yourself options essentially. So because of this, those athletes go between varsity and JV meets. And as a former competitor, what are you gonna think if you ran a varsity meet last week and now you're in a JV meet? You're gonna think, oh, I'm not good, or something to that effect. So I'd like to be very transparent with these athletes and let them know, hey, I'm doing this to give you more opportunities. I think that you're a talented competitor. Just because I put you in JV in one meet does not mean that you will not compete varsity again. So I like to be transparent and keep that in their head, because I've noticed when kids start track, they're so focused. I wanna be on varsity, I wanna be on varsity, all or nothing. It doesn't work that way. I've seen kids who were JV their whole career, they put in a bunch of work one summer, ended up being our top 400 runner and a captain on the team. So it's possible. So I'd like to keep that goal there for them, let them know that it is still attainable for them. Prepare before meets and practice. I've said that many times. I'm gonna keep saying it. Just make sure you're prepared. Stuff goes off the handle all the time. Things get off schedule, so just make sure you're as prepared as you can be. Especially with equipment. I'll get into that a little bit later. Just make sure you or your jumpers have everything they need when they get to the pits, and that they know what they need to do if you're absent. And then just part of like having a variety of workouts. So since I have such a high volume of athletes, like 40 kids, I'll have a workout plan and I'll have them start doing it, and then I'm realizing, oh, half these kids can't do this. So that's why I have multiple workouts, because I do have to pivot in the middle of the workout and change what I do, because it's not effective coaching. All right, so just reading off of this, obviously plan your workouts in advance, expect to pivot, set clear expectations with your athletes, and then just keep that, you know, transparency with them. The ones that might be kind of like in the middle with their performance, just letting them know, hey, you have potential, don't give up, keep coming. And then also I made a point at the bottom here, so for newer athletes who may not be jumpers, but you're noticing throughout the season that they have potential, those kids, I would actually make it a point to seek them out and let them know this. My kids are learning as a coach. I know talent when I see it. I will go to kids their freshman year and say, you should be a jumper. This is when the kids go, okay, whatever, Natalie. They go around, they want to be on a relay, they want to be varsity. They try everything else. Next year, what do? They come be a jumper, varsity jumper. Told you so. So things like that, it's you know, hone and harvest and grow that potential if you see it. All right, so segueing off of having so many kids, we have to coach athletes with a lot of different skill levels. So just some kind of things I've been learning over the years. It's still a challenge. I still don't do it perfectly. Who knows if I will. But so the first thing is, and I've been finding this, and this is something big I need to work on, developing the skills of veteran athletes is as equally as important as teaching foundational skills and proper techniques to rookies. You can't only focus on your varsity athletes, and you can't only focus on your JV, because that's not providing your varsity athletes with those opportunities to get better. You can't keep watering down their workouts to accommodate that larger group that may not be as advanced. Exercise patience. I'm sure most, if not all of you know that. They're kids. You know, you gotta be patient. Stuff happens. You're gonna have to explain yourself over and over again. You're gonna have to command their attention when they start chatting with each other. Be patient. It doesn't help anyone to get upset and frustrated. Yes, sometimes you will lose your patience, but for the most part, just try to, like, if you get frustrated, just take a step back. It's not that serious. It's serious, but it's not that serious, and just kind of reevaluate. Be transparent with your kids. You know what I mean? Like, if you're getting a little frustrated, be like, guys, this is a little frustrating. Like, just be transparent. But maintain positivity as well. So yeah, maintaining a positive attitude and environment. This is really big, and I think that this lends a lot to my recruitment and retention. It needs to be fun. Kids stop doing sports when it's not fun anymore. So we want to make sure it's fun. I want to make sure it's fun for everyone. I want to make sure it's fun for my JV athletes who, I've got kids who've never made in the pit. I don't care. I want them to have fun. I want them to come back. I want them to keep doing it. Consider all skill levels when developing your training plan. This comes into those workouts. I often try to have workouts where obviously the beginners can do them, but they're also valuable to my, bigger athletes. Sometimes I might even develop two stations. One's a little bit more beginner and one's more advanced. I will have the varsity start in the more advanced, the JV start in the beginner. If they start to pick it up, hop them over to the varsity line to do the more advanced. So that way, that kind of helps me with the whole building steps. You still need to stay here. Okay, you're picking it up. You come over here. So I do that a lot. A lot of station workouts. Designate days for specific smaller groups to get more individualized training. This is to my first point. So I was noticing that I was not doing a benefit to my varsity athletes because I was watering down their workouts to teach the basics to my newbies because there were so many of them. But then I realized my athletes weren't, progressing as much as I'd like to see and I had seen in the past. And I was like, you know what? I'm not being fair to you guys. So now I have, because the JV kids will show up every day. Like, they'll stay there. And even if I tell them to go home, they'll stay there. So we do Saturday only practices for varsity. That's it. I will, again, some swing athletes I might invite to join us. Those are invite only days. And then now, I don't do this as much in the past because, like I said, JV will show up regardless. But now I'm starting to be strict and say, hey, this is a varsity practice. You're welcome to come, but if you can't keep up, you'll be done. And then obviously safety is a huge issue. I'm really big on that. If a athlete that's less skilled tries to do a harder workout and you can clearly see that's a safety issue, they need to stop. Try to adapt and understand the learning styles of your athletes. As somebody with ADHD, this is very big for me because I only learn in particular ways. If you try to teach me one way, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. I also reflected a little bit as a former athlete. I remember as a kid, you can tell me something and I'm going to do it. I'm not going to really think about what I'm doing. Like, I just think now, and I apologize to my coaches. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I just did the thing. I was like, I didn't really think about why I was doing it. And I'm realizing, that's something that happens. So I try to sit back and do kind of like educational sessions. Okay, this is what we're doing. Do we know why we're doing it? Do we know how this applies to what we're doing? So kind of just explaining because I feel like that helps them understand what they need to do with their bodies better. And then segueing off of that, emphasize how each drill is related to the jump. Let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. That helps, again, bring the whole picture together. Because I tell kids, one day it's all going to click. And so that's kind of it, helping put those puzzle pieces together until they get that full puzzle piece, that full picture, if you will. Oh, and then make practices fun. Quite honestly, I'll be frank, I get most of my workouts from Instagram. It's fun. They're fun workouts. They're quick. They're I usually use either other coaches, professional coaches, or professional athletes themselves. They'll post some of their training. So it's fun because it also helps the beginning of the workout. I'll pull it up. I'll be like, this is what we're doing today, guys. And it's just, that's where my bank of workouts, I literally have a saved list in Instagram of just workouts. So, I can always just lend to that. I have it broken down: long jump, triple jump, running, just different things like that. So there's so many free resources. All right, continuing off of this. So for when you have bigger groups and different skill levels, you're gonna wanna focus on the basics. Obviously this will build foundational skills for your younger athletes, but this is just going to help reinforce that good technique and the whole jump sequence for your veterans. So it's kind of like a refining, a tweaking session for them, if you will, where the less experienced athletes are still learning. So we can get a little bit of value from it for both groups. Let's see. A allow your varsity athletes during these exercises, let them coach your kids. If you trust that they know what they're doing and they can see things and they can direct and guide properly, let them do it. Seriously. I sometimes will, like I said, I have kids that come up later and I need a handle. My varsity kids will step up and be like, okay, do this drill, and then they'll run them through it, which is very, very helpful. So I'm somebody who's kind of a control freak and I like to do everything myself, and I'm learning I can't do that. It's not sustainable. So, if you have those kids you can rely on, do it. I make a jumps captain every year. I have somebody, because jumpers aren't usually captains. Coincidentally, I have 3 of them this year that are whole team captains, which is nice. But and it helps create a sense of importance, obviously. But yeah, I have somebody that guides my jump group and, is their captain. So I just have some suggested skill work down here. I'm not going to go through it. This presentation will be available for you guys later. All right, so pre-meet prep. This is important. So I learned this, a very hard lesson, over several years. So when I started coaching, obviously it was my new coaching, I'm not realizing that kids that have never jumped before have also never jumped in a meet. They don't know what to do. You can't just send a kid to a meet and be like, hey, figure it out, and then you get up there, why aren't you doing run-throughs? I didn't learn that I needed to go through that with them. So that was something I was like, why do I have to babysit my athletes? Why do I have to go get them from there? Why aren't they coming to the pits? So now I make it a point for our first meet. We do also have an intra-squad meet, which is very helpful to help them gain experience. But I sit them down and, I go, who's never jumped, who needs stuff? And I just do an educational session. I've got, frequently asked questions that I know they're gonna have. I let them ask me questions. I just literally do kind of like a mock little meet, and I tell them, guys, okay, we're at the pits. We see our, we do our run-throughs, we get our mark, we see our officials, so we check in. If we're doing other events, we're making sure to manage our time, letting them know it's not unlimited. You have a time frame in which you need to jump. I can't tell you how many times kids would go, do other events, go play with their friends, and come back. And they're like, can I jump? And sorry, pits are closed. I can't do anything for you. So that's just, holding it accountable. Yes, it stinks that they didn't get to compete, but I guarantee you they're going to pay more attention next time. Let's see. And then obviously, for these lesser experienced athletes, obviously, even if they are varsity level, having them compete in JV, if you can, just helps them gain experience, and it's a lot less pressure at those meets. Multi-event competitors. I have a lot of these, and it's very, very, very important to set them up with a game plan. Most of them actually, I'm blessed, are very, very good at managing themselves. They kind of have to. But I like to just lay it out the day before. Okay, I meet with them. What events are you running? We look at the schedule. What time? So I say, okay, we get to the meet. You know to come to jumps. You know to do your run through. Go do your warm up. Run your 100. Come back. Do this. So I just give them a game plan, and it helps obviously them manage themselves. I just let them know, hey, I'm here if you need to figure out how to manage yourself. Because, like I mentioned, when I was a kid, the only reason I got to my events on time is because my teammates came and got me. I was in la la land. And then for unfamiliar athletes, so this happens to me a lot. It's a challenge. So I have kids a lot that I will have not seen at practice, and the day before their meet, they're like, hey, I'm here to do run-throughs. And I'm like, who are you? It's like, I've never seen you jump before. I don't know if you can jump. And this might seem a little harsh, but generally, I will send those kids away that day. My kids competing need to do the run-throughs. I got 40 kids that need to do run-throughs. Unfortunately, I cannot spend this time to just teach you jumps today. You know what I mean? So I will tell them, hey, I'm not going to have you compete in this meet, but please come to practice next week so we can work on it and have you compete in the next meet. This is largely due to safety. I've had kids that have never made it in the pit before. It's scary. They can hurt themselves. So if a kid, if they're just not fast enough, I might, hold them back and then practice with them more. But I just don't like to throw an athlete out there who's never done it before and then be like, figure it out. So again, I just like them to have, it's a technical sport, and a lot of kids don't really, they think it's just running and jumping and do sand, and it's a lot more than that. So I kind of like to stress that to them, hey, this is dedication. You can't just come and go, and if you do that, you're not going to progress, point blank. Let's see, I just mentioned that. For triple jump too, just talking on safety stuff. So I was an athlete that, the first time I ever triple jumped, I had no experience. When I was competing in Ohio, they don't do triple jump in Ohio. They did it at one exhibition meet. I'd never done it. They threw me in. I did it. I broke the school record, but I tweaked my knee, and I didn't do any more jumps that meet. And that kind of traumatized me a little bit. And so I like to make sure that the athlete's comfortable. Yeah, you could be a great triple jumper, but if you're nervous, that's not helping anybody. So I like to make sure, especially if it's their first time, I like to make sure that they're fully comfortable. sometimes even at a meet, I'll be like, hey, we're not doing this full speed, let's take it down. But just work with your athletes and, try to cater to them, and make sure they're comfortable with what they're doing. Don't just throw a kid out there if they're not ready. It's not fair to them. And then quick thing too, also, I mentioned I have like a jumps captain. We have what I call a jumps bag. I spoil my kids and I work from home and I'm usually there all the time. I keep a track bag. I got everything you could ever need in that track bag. I promise you. So sometimes though, I'm late. Sometimes I can't make it on time. I suck with driving. I have the worst sense of direction, so sometimes I get lost. So we have a bag that has everything they need. It's got their tape measure. They've got chalk and or actual tape with a marker if they need it. They should know their starting marks. I do keep it on file for them. But yeah, they should have everything they need there, and they're responsible for getting that bag before the meet, making sure it's at the meet, and picking it up and making sure we bring it home. So that's on them. If they don't have it and I'm not there, I've encouraged them to, use other teams and, have them help you, but it's very important. It helps, instill that responsibility in them. A little bit more pre-meet prep. So this is going back to those kids that I don't see a lot. I have a requirement that if you want to compete in meet, I have to see you the day before for run-throughs. Obviously, there's exceptions to that. Kids have conflicts, but I want to see you the day before meet. Obviously, we use this time to do run-throughs to make sure you're consistent, because if you're horribly off and you didn't do a run-through and you go to the meet, we only have so much time to correct you. And you can't try to change things at meet. It's not going to change. It doesn't happen. So I mentioned we do run-throughs to ensure consistency. We use this opportunity to identify and correct any major deviations. So if someone's super far off, I'll work with them. I do limit the number of run-throughs. I don't sit there and make them do 20 of them. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, your steps today are not going to be the exact same steps you do at that meet. You know what I mean? There's different variables. There's wind. There's different things. So I try not to focus on it too much because we still have a little bit of time to fix it in the next meet. But this is the great opportunity to do that, to fix those deviations and get them as comfortable, because if kids aren't on the day before, they do think about it when they're competing and they are nervous about it. I do allow some athletes to perform light technique work, specifically the triple jump relay, because they just kind of want to get that full phase and feel comfortable. So I'm not going to have a full practice where I'm doing strenuous work, but if there's some light stuff that I think will help them, we'll do that the day before. This is a great time to evaluate your athletes that might be injured. I'm a big proponent of not pushing a kid when they're injured, because that doesn't help them. So I tore my ACL long jumping. I'm very sensitive to injuries. So I talk to them, I confer with them. If they're not doing good, I'm not going to make them compete. If they're ready, we adjust. So that's a great time to just reassess them, see where they're doing, give them guidance. If they're not ready to compete, say, hey, you need to go do this at home, take care of yourself. And then for the multi-event athletes, just make sure that they've done their pre-meet for all of their events, not just jumps. As I mentioned, my kids are very good at managing themselves, but sometimes, I'll need to be like, okay, have you done relays? Have you gone hurdles? Make sure you do that. And that goes back to the co-coaching with your other coaches. You need to be respectful, because we do have kids that do multi-event athletes, and I would be kind of upset if a kid did hurdles and then my hurdle coach shouldn't be like, hey, did you go to jumps? So it's kind of like, it's not my responsibility to make sure they go there, but I like to, try to help both my co-coaches and the athletes. Okay. I wanted to quickly talk, and it's not on the slide, but about some coaching challenges as well that kind of parlay into what I just spoke about before, pre-meet prep, and then what I'm about to go into. So one of the biggest things I've noticed, or not noticed, but I just mentioned it, long and triple jump are technical. Kids don't understand that. I have kids that are like, well, I'm going to hurdles, and obviously hurdles are technical. If you don't do it right, you're going to get hurt. So I try to convey that to them at the beginning of the season. This is a technical sport. It's not just running and jumping. Yes, you can run and jump. Are you going to jump very well? Probably not. So I try to explain that to them. It takes time. It takes dedication. You can't just come and go if you're not going to progress. Sharing talented athletes with other coaches is a big, big challenge. So I personally don't fight with other coaches for kids, because it's just not worth my time. If you want the kid and they're going to excel, that's great. If they want to do jumps, I'm going to take them. But if, you know what I mean, it's just not worth my time to fight for them. Ultimately, they're going to end up where they need to be based on their performance. Let's see here. Kids that show up to practice sporadically kind of conveys off that. You need to be at practice consistently. I did start doing what I call cuts. I'm really big on not sending any kid away. If you come up, you want to learn, I'm going to coach you. But now, I'm reflecting, it's not fair to me for you to only come sporadically when you feel like it. It's not fair to my athletes who are learning and developing. So at a certain point in the season, if I haven't seen you consistently, I'm not putting you on the roster. Some of these kids will sneak in at JV meets and still compete, but I'm like, okay, have fun. Like, I can't coach you. So that's something that's, I'm reflecting, and I'm there for my athletes, but I also need to respect myself, and I need to make sure that I'm being respected as well. Okay, let's see. Coaching boys and girls together. This can be challenging mostly with my varsity athletes, especially if we're doing technique work. So I do a lot of phase work. We do, mini hurdles, boxes and stuff. Boys have longer legs. Boys jump a lot farther than girls. So it's not chaotic, but it's kind of hard because you have to do a lot of trial and error with moving it. And I'll have a girl do her run through, quickly. We have 2 runways that we use, and we do long jump on the left and triple jump on the right. That's how we do it. And so I will usually have my varsity triple jumpers together. So I have my boys and my girls together. And then my JV will be doing long jump because most JV kids don't do triple jump. So that's where it gets complicated because my varsity is limited to 1 runway and we're limited to our equipment because we don't have that much. And so in between athletes, and I'm teaching my athletes to do this themselves and adjust, before they go. But yeah, sometimes I'll have a girl go and then I'll have to figure out where the boy goes and it's not right, so he doesn't do it, you know what I mean? So that's something that I've been finding challenging, and I'm still, working on that. But that's something to think about too, is having to do those adjustments in the middle of your workout. All right, so coaching high-performing multiple event athletes. This is Devin. Some of you have probably heard of Devin. Very, very lucky to have coached him. He's an outstanding athlete. He competes in multiple events. He's currently competing for the Air Force. So he's just a phenomenal athlete. He's one of those athletes that can manage himself. Like, couldn't have asked for a better athlete to coach. But it takes a village. And I'm very proud of us. We had a very strategic way of coaching him this year, and I think that really did lend to his success. So, as mentioned, talented athletes are often asked to compete in several events. This is where I'm talking about sharing kids with other coaches. It happens. We want to be successful. So things to consider here. The timing of events. Some events are going to coincide with each other. He does high jump and long jump. They happen at the same time. He has to do run-throughs for both of them. How are we going to manage that? If you make like high jump is different. You have to qualify. If you make it, you're still there. Long jump, you just do your 4 jumps. If we have finals, you do it. So it's a little bit more strategic. We work with our officials a lot. I'm lucky to also be an official, so I know the officials, and so just communicate as soon as we get there. Hey, I got this athlete. If I think that moving on to a different flight or whatever, we will work them. We just make sure that we're strategic, we have a plan, and we execute it right when we get there. Qualifying for finals in both fields. This happened to Devin actually when we went to Hamlin Elite Meet. It was a terrible weather day. High jump is indoors, long and triple jump are outdoors. So this kid's having to go back and forth in between a facility and a track on a rainy day, crap weather. And so he ended up, I think he broke the record in high jump that day. So he went out there, did his high jump, he did his long jump, qualified for finals right away. So I was like, if you want to jump, you can. I said, but I really think that you would be best served going in and competing high jump and continuing that. I don't know how we didn't think of this before, but we have text messaging now. So his high jump coach and I regularly text, hey, where's he at? What's he doing? Or I'd let him know, hey, I need Devin out here now. How soon can we be out here? So that was very pivotal in helping him. And it helped him kind of stay a little bit more calm. So it was like, oh my God, I have to go to jump now. Like, I'll let you know when you need to go. Again, it kind of seems like babysitting a little bit, but that's a lot for a kid to manage. They do need help. And then, like I just said, communicating when they need to be, where they need to be and when they need to be there. That's something that's very important because if you're not there, you might miss your event. And in some meets, if you miss an event, you're DQ'd from everything. All right, so as I just mentioned, going through a little more detail about how we manage for success. So again, day before meet, we run through a game plan. Okay, Devin, you're doing this, 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 and this. Here are the times. This is how we're going to try to do it. So they have that. They should know what they're supposed to be doing. Make sure they have a clear understanding of their event and how they need to manage their time. Again, I've got newer athletes that are varsity that aren't experienced, and they will dilly-dally after their event, and I'm like, you need to come to the pit and get your jumps. You can't go socialize. You can do that after you're done. So just, letting them know that, but then also letting them know, hey, I'm here to help you develop that time management skill. So just letting them know, hey, this is important, but I'm going to work with you to help you understand this. Communication, as I mentioned, text messaging. I can't even explain this. Our entire coaching staff just started a group chat last year. I have no idea why we did not utilize it before, because it is a game changer. So I communicated with my jumps coach. I have Devin's parents' phone number in my phone. I'm on a first name basis with them. Like, it's his parents' works. If you have actively involved parents, use them. I've got parents that will, if I can't get up and get a video of your kid, I know their parents got it. So if I need a review, I'm going to your parents. So like, they were essential. Like, they would run back and forth between events and get him, and they're just awesome. So if you have people that are willing to help you, let them help you. And then, like I said, this just allows the athlete to kind of be a little bit more relaxed. I know we're about to compete, but stress less about the logistics and focus more on competing and performing. Recruiting and retention. So I'm going to brag about myself a little bit. I am a very big part of recruiting and retention for the Eden Prairie Track and Field team. As I mentioned, I grew my jumps group from 10 to over 30. I never had a kid do jumps from freshman year to senior. All of my jumpers now go from freshman year. They all stay, which is amazing. I'm so thankful for it, but it's not something that I experienced in the past. So, recruiting and retention. We want kids to have fun. We want them to do sport. However, we know at the end of the day, we've got a business. We have to fund things. You know what I mean? We need kids to come out so that we can fund our program to help develop our athletes. So that's something that's important. And we have to also keep in mind that we want to maintain a competitive reputation. You know what I mean? People like to win. Nobody likes to lose. So we want to make sure that we're getting quality athletes and developing those athletes and getting them in as soon as we can, so we have those 4 years to help develop them. So benefits of recruiting and retention, and taking a focused and concentrated effort to do it. Higher turnout for your program, more funding, more kids, more opportunities, more athletes to develop. Greater visibility of your program throughout the school and community. We had over 250 kids on our team last year, and that's a huge number of kids, and a lot of it was because our coaches were letting other kids know, hey, we're doing track. We had football players, hey, you should do track, it's great, cross-training conditioning for you. So just kids that may not have ever thought about track before might be like, hey, I might go for the track team this year because, this person's really excited about it and they want me to come out. As I just mentioned, a larger pool of athletes to help develop over time. And then it encourages future generations to participate. So we have a track and field association in Eden Prairie where, elementary, middle school kids are all part of it. And not all of those kids stay with it. And so we had a clinic this past year where there were kids in elementary school, and some of them showed great potential. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've got 8 more years till you're here, but I want you to stay here so I can coach you. So that's something, just encouraging them, if they have little siblings, trying to get their siblings to come out, just maintaining that, community and that legacy of your program, really. A little bit of how I recruit kids, and some of what I'm trying to do and kind of my strategy behind it. So, my biggest thing, bring your friends. I don't care if your friends have never run track. If you're having fun with them, you're both more likely to stay on my team. Your friend might be an outstanding athlete, and that's great if they are. Bring your friends. Have fun with it. Do things with your friends. Encourage athletes who have other primary sports to join. Like I said, football. Let them know, hey, this is great for keeping you in shape in the off season. It's fun, So just letting them know, hey, there's a benefit to this, even if track is not your main sport. Get excited. Energy is contagious. I mean, if somebody comes up to you and they're excited, you're like, hey, yeah, what do you want to talk to me about? You know what I mean? So energy is contagious. Get excited about it. If somebody approached me about track and they were kind of lackluster about it, like, hey, you want to join my track team? Not really. So get excited. It's contagious. Point blank. Convey that they will be a valued asset to your team. I do not care if this kid runs a 22nd 100. I'm glad you're on my team. Thank you for being on my team. You are welcome here. Every athlete, because if you do not cultivate and celebrate them all, they will quit. It will no longer be fun. They will feel like they are ignored. That is huge for me. As a varsity athlete, I was never ignored, but I'm big on supporting people and letting those athletes know that they're seen and they're important. Everybody's important. They're all valued. Bridge the gap. So this is something, with me not being a teacher, I try to focus on a little more because I don't know the dynamics, so I kind of go into it blindly and force things, if you will. So a lot of kids in school, I've noticed some kids, their social group doesn't also do track. You know, their friends didn't come out with them, so they're, you know, kind of off on their own. And you know, you've got your kids who've done track for multiple years. They know each other. They hang out. So I try to find, you know, personality commonalities and connect these kids. And I think I've done a really good job of that. I've got kids that didn't hang out in school, and now they hang out with each other outside of school, and they never would have known each other if they hadn't done track together. So just use that to bridge the gap, connect kids. Being a teenager is hard. We need friends. We need a support system. Someone, like I said, they may not know this person. You could find your best friend when you're at track. You know what I mean? So always possibilities. Try to bridge the gap, and just create that sense of community and belonging. So establishing and maintaining relationships with athletes. Yes, this is Jackie. I did not plan for this. I asked her to come later. So anyway, but this is a prime example, and I take pride that I can do this. So as I mentioned, I've known Jackie since she was a freshman in high school. She's now graduating college in her 20s. I'm so thankful that she still understands that I'm here for her. She trusts my judgment. She asks me for advice. Like, that means a lot to me. So like, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And like I said, I'm here for kids in track, outside of track. I'm just here for you. I want to be that support system for you, even though I'm just your track coach. All right, so establishing relationships with athletes. I'm gonna start on this one. Before you have feelings, let me explain. Treat them as peers, not children. Yeah. Yes, they are children. There are boundaries as an adult that we have to make sure we maintain. Absolutely. But I make it a point to not treat them like children. They're developing into adults. Some of them are about to be 18 and go off to college on their own. I treat them as adults, as a sign of respect, if you will. I don't want, because all day long, you know what I mean? They have parents, they have teachers that might treat them that way, so I treat them as adults, I speak to them as adults, I'm transparent with them as adults, and I expect that in return. And a part of that too is, like I said, it takes a village. We are developing these children. I want them to be able to be successful, courteous, considerate, you know, adults who contribute to society positively. So I treat them the way that I treat my peers who work, you know what I mean? So just kind of setting them up and establishing that in them and letting them have that skill as they go into adulthood. Be authentic. I'm a very transparent person. I'm very candid. I don't beat around the bush. And I'm authentic. Like, I don't tell them everything about my life, but if I have, like what was mentioned before, if I have a bad day, I'm gonna tell them, be like, guys, I'm struggling. I'm authentic. What am I trying to say here? I wear my heart on my sleeve, and they know that, and when I communicate to them, that's how it is. But just, I'm always myself. I've been told I'm unapologetically myself, and I'm gonna stay that way, and they know to expect that, and so I think that helps obviously lend to like that trust between us as well. Respect their feelings and opinions. Everyone deserves basic human respect. Enough said. Celebrate your athletes. This is huge. So, yes, boundaries need to be maintained. I do follow my kids on social media. They do follow me. I have a coaching only account because I have, you know what I mean? Like, my social media has my personal friends and I post personal things. But I also found that's a great way to celebrate them. If they do good at a meet, I'm gonna post a story about it. Hey, so-and-so did this performance today, great job. All of their track friends follow it, all of their school friends follow it, they're gonna see it, they're gonna share it. That's a great way to be like, oh my gosh, my coach is proud of me, now everyone knows that I did good today. Even the kids that are not, the kid that didn't make it into the pit, I'm so proud of you today, thank you for coming and showing up. So yeah, I have a group chat with my girls, and I use that to communicate, practice, other things, jokes with each other, things like that. But that's been very important. It's just a great way to communicate. If I need to tell something to my entire group, that's how I do it. And then, like I said, I let them know that I appreciate them. They could be an athlete that is not talented at all, but I still want them to know that they're valued and I appreciate them. And I always tell them I'm proud of them. I don't care how, if you think you perform poorly, I will recognize that, but I always tell them I'm proud of them. Always. I have a few notes on this. So, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the season, I sit down with the kids. Not only do I tell them about like jumps and stuff, I literally sit down, I tell them about me, I tell them my personality. As I mentioned, I'm very blunt, and sometimes I don't read my audience. So I let them know, hey, if I do something that offends you, please let me know. I'll try to work on it. So just, again, making myself a safe space, letting them know I'm here for them. I set an expectation of truth. I'm going to be honest to you, and I expect you to be wholly honest with me. This means, like, you never know what a kid's going through. So, like, I like to use this example. So if a kid skips practice, and they're like, hey, I have a doctor's appointment, that's why I missed practice. And I get on Instagram, and I see they went to a concert with their friend. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, I don't mind that you weren't at practice, but I do mind that you were dishonest with me about that. And that's, like, my hard stop. I'm like, once you lie to me, we're going to struggle with that trust. So I just said that, and I use an example. I say, hey, if you had a really bad day at school, your boyfriend broke up at you, and you just can't do practice, tell me. Okay, go do what you need to do. That's fine. Thank you for letting me know. If you need anything, I'm here for you. But I'm very big on trust and honesty, and I don't think anybody likes to be lied to. So, again, we're developing adults. We want them to be good people. I never tell a kid they do bad. Ever. I will never, ever, ever tell a kid they did bad. I'll never yell at them out of me. I will never chastise them. It does not benefit anyone. Simply. It doesn't help them. It can damage your ego. It doesn't help you. It makes you kind of look like a rude coach sometimes, depending on how often you do it. So it never benefits anyone to be negative. Now, if an athlete has a performance, and we both know that it's not, to their level of expectation, I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, oh my God, you did so good, because I know they did. And as a former athlete, I would be kind of annoyed if someone came up to me and they're like, oh, you did so good. And I'm like, no, I didn't. So I will acknowledge that. Say, hey, I'm proud of you. I understand that you didn't have the performance that you wanted today. Or I'll say, hey, there are, areas we can improve. But again, I'm proud of you. Thank you for coming out. Every meet, all the time, period. Let's see. So this is kind of maintaining relationships with athletes, both in high school and beyond. So this is kind of how I develop and maintain those beyond. So check in on your athletes. I've had times where I've just like randomly thought about an athlete or something, or a past athlete, and I'll just be like, hey, I just thought about you, or hey, I was just thinking about you, or something like that. Like, they value that. That's important. You think about them, you let them know that. Let them know you're here for support 24/7. I'm never going to stop saying that. Just let them know you're a safe space, you're there. You don't know if they have that support system, so you want to make sure it's available. Maintain appropriate boundaries. I mentioned that. We are adults. They are children. We know certain things we should and should not be doing. There are certain things we should not be talking about, should be talking about. Certain behaviors we should be doing, shouldn't. Use your best judgment. We all took background checks. I'm sure we're all responsible adults, but just make sure you maintain those appropriate boundaries. And going to this, so I have the kids' numbers. If it's not track season, I don't communicate. If they reach out to me, I'll entertain it. I don't communicate outside track season. I don't want to be weird. But no, so I let them drive that, and that's kind of out of college. Like, now Jackie and I, as she's getting older, we're communicating back and forth a little more, but for the most part, if she reached out to me, I would entertain it. Otherwise, I'd let them live their lives. Support them in their other areas of interest. This is really big. So I have two girls who were varsity basketball players, and me and one of my other coaches went to their basketball game. And I didn't even think they knew I was there. And after the game, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming. And I was like, you're welcome. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So just, again, this is letting them know you're there for them, you support them, you care about them. And then getting to know them on a personal level. Like I said, I sit down with them, I tell them they can come to me about anything. I tell them stories about my life lessons. So, know what they're passionate about, their interests beyond track and field. And this kind of helps with developing them after track into college as adults. And then just it's nice when people care about you and get to know things about you. And I think that was it. Cool. So my last slide here, I just want to remind everyone, use your resources. USATF, there's courses, educational resources, there's free courses, there's courses you can pay for. YouTube, professional athletes, coaches, they all post YouTube videos. Obviously use your discretion, because some people have no idea what they're talking about. But that's a great resource. It's free, it's video, you can show the kids. That's big. That's how I start every workout. I show them what we're supposed to be doing, so they can kind of have some sort of understanding of that concept. Instagram, as I mentioned before, I have a bank of workouts on Instagram. It might sound unprofessional or whatever, it works. It's a resource, and I use it. Books, obviously, there's been books written by many authors. You can get them online, you can go pick up a physical book. There's also scientific studies and scholarly articles. I mention this because there is a track coach, a jumps coach, John Shepard, who's based out of the UK. He's very, very well known. He follows me, we talk a lot. But he does his coaching, it's evidence-based coaching. He does little experiments to see how it works, how it doesn't work. He evaluates it, and then he shares, his results. So he is very evidence-based, and I appreciate that because it's not just, oh, I think this will work. It's, I did this is how it applied. If he needs to change it, he does, and then this is the result. So, and he's also one that coaches year-round, so he's got way more experience than I do with my only, 3 months of coaching throughout the season. And then obviously, other coaches are a resource. Obviously, we're all here. Don't hesitate to ask. I really don't think that there would be a coach out there that would tell you no if you ask for some advice. And if so, that's unfortunate. But yeah, so use your resources. There's a ton of them out there. A lot of them are free. You don't have to spend the money to do it, but that's how I've learned a lot over the years from coaching. So that's been really beneficial to me. And I did a really good job of taking up time. So does anybody have any questions?
How do you, with a large group, it sounds like you have a wide range of athletic ability. When you're talking about kind of breaking things down, there's been a lot of talks on approach work and short approaches early, giving them more speed later in the season. But the season's short, as we all know, and also there's the varying levels of ability. How do you kind of navigate what you do with approaches and progressing that with your kids?
Yeah, so something I've started doing too is obviously we know consistency is key, and that's one of the things that those newer athletes, they don't have a consistent approach. I start every practice with wind sprints now. We're just working on that sprinting at practice, making sure we have that speed, consistency. Obviously, repetition is going to be your friend, but the biggest part is breaking it down. You know what I mean? Like looking and really seeing where they need to improve. Like, so for instance, like we can't cater to each individual athlete, but if you're noticing like a small group needs to work on something, then I would hone on that, and I honestly that's how I tailor my workouts. If I notice that we need to work on something, that's what my workouts are going to be for. So yeah, approach work, repetition. Kids don't understand that long jump is a sprint because we're on a runway. I'm like, no, bro, this is a full. You should be running as fast as you run the 100. Like this is a full sprint. So that's something to conveying that to them, letting them know this is not a jog. You need to be fast. You need to be just as fast every single time you run down. So does that answer your question?
Do you, with certain kids, if they're younger, maybe you can tell they're not going to be as talented, do you kind of keep them at shorter approaches all season, and then the more advanced kids maybe give them more speed later?
Yeah, and so the way that I do my steps with them, that happens naturally, just because they're not as fast, so they naturally need to start from that, closer point. But yeah, I mean, I actually take steps with my athletes a couple times during the season because they change, they develop, they get better, things like that. So yeah, it's funny. The athlete that never made the pit, she did actually make the pit last season. But that was kind of how we worked with her. Like I couldn't necessarily cater to her at practices, but I was, mindful of where she was. And then towards the end of the season, I actually ended up moving her a little closer, and then she made me the pit. So yeah, it's just something just monitoring, watching, and I understand it's a large group of kids, but I mean, after daily practice, you kind of get to know their stuff. So yeah, but just monitoring where they're at and just trying to stress consistency and speed, even if they may not be able to be as fast as everybody else. So, but yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Make sure. Any other questions?
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. We do have 2 more afterwards, so go eat lunch, come on back, check out the vendors and everything else, and if you have any questions, I'm sure she's available, or we'll throw her future assistant to the wolves.
Drop this, but your chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.